Okay, I will start part 2 of the assignment from page 16, and I am in C 3.0. I will walk you over creating prototype services, and the next step will involve creating a prototype service component for the step which searches for employees to simulate the real service. So I'll go to the design sheet. So from the previous assignment part 1, I am in the design sheet, and then what I have to do is I have to click the compose tab, expand the components group, and drag the service component into the workspace below the wizard, and then from there I will click on creating service. So I have to take it up, expand components, service component, drag it here, then create service. Okay, and then here I will be naming the service as employee search, and the rest would be the same. So let's name it employee search. Local repository and development component would be the same. So this is going to be my employee search, and then what I have to do is that I have to double click on the employee search, and then I would have two components, two tabs. Okay, so I come here, double click, so I get a employee search here. Then I have to drag in data in, and I have to drag in data out. Okay, so in the data in I have to name it employee underscore in, and data out I have to name it employee underscore out. So employee underscore in, and employee underscore out. Okay, so I have these two elements here, and then I have to right click on employee in and define data. Okay, and then I have to define it as string, and then enter employee ID for field name and close. So I have to define data. Okay, field name string, and this text one I have to call it employee ID, and I have to close. Okay, similarly I have to define data for employee out, add the following string fields and close. And the string fields are employee ID, last name, first name, country, state, city, street, house number, zip code, and address ID. So employee ID, define data, string, and then I would add employee ID, last name, first name. So employee ID, last name, first name, then country, state, city. Country, state, city, and then I have street, house number, street, house number, zip code and address ID. Okay, after that I close and then I drag and drop a static data icon here. Okay, so after that I close, go to compose, static data icon, I drag and drop here, and then what do I have to do? I have to define, right click static one and have to define data, and then I have to add the following field names. Okay, so define data and add the following field names. So that's one is address ID, not address ID, sorry, employee ID, last name, first name, country, state, city. Okay, then last name, first name, country, state, city, street, house number, zip code, address ID. Okay, do not close yet. Click initialize data and then enter dummy data. Okay, so I click initialize data and then enter dummy data. In the dummy data I can just do anything. Okay, so let me enter dummy data, employee ID, say I do 3213, first name, last name, country, woman, and in address ID I can just put in something. Okay, so let me put in 11111111, then okay, and then close, and then drag a link from static 1 to employee out. Okay, static 1 to employee out, and then right click on the new link and select map data, okay, Okay, now all the fields should be mapped current data row for select mode and click close. Okay, so this is, I can see last, first and all those, and then current data row, and then I click close. Okay, then what happens to employee prototype model? I return to that, right click and select redefine ports. Okay, redefine ports. Okay, then what I do is select both employee in and employee out ports and click OK. Then what I do is I connect the out port of the search for employee to the employee in port of the employee search service. Okay, out and in. Okay, so out to in. Okay, and then what do I have to name? Select the new transition line by clicking on it. For event name, select search. Search. Okay, then connect the employee out port of the employee search service to the in port of modify details. Okay, so I do this one. Let me bring it here to the in port of modify details, and then I click on layout. Okay, click the search employee form and then select the employee ID field. Okay, and then I have to select employee ID from the value drop down list and make sure read only is unchecked. Okay, similarly I'll click the modify details form, select the employee ID field, and we'll select the drop down employee ID value and select read only. Okay, now repeat the above step to add values for all the fields on the modify details form. Mark check as read only. Last name, first name and address ID. Okay, so I have to check last name, first name and address ID as read only. So city value, country to add the value for country, zip code, okay. Now I have to save the model, deploy, and then I have to see what's happening. Save my work, deploy, open it, okay. So when I click on that, I can pull up 3213, my first name and last name, address ID, and all the information that I have put in, okay. So I'm fine. Then I go back to working more on it. So I'll go back to the design view. From the compose tab, I will drag another service component and create service and call it edit employee address, okay. So I go to the compose tab. Before that I need to go to the design view. I pull up another service component, I create service and I call it edit employee address, okay. Now this one I have to double click and then again I have to drag a data in and a data out and call them employee detail in and return. Employee detail in and return, and then I have to define data for each, I believe, and then so I have to define data and I have to define all of this data: employee date ID, last name, first name, country, state, city, street, house number, zip code, address ID. So how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, close, and then close. Employee data in. Okay, so I have done that. Then I have to define the following fields. Click the employee prototype application tab. Have the employee prototype application tab. Okay, right click, redefine ports. I have to check both of them, I guess. I have to check both of them, and then drag the output from the modify details form to the employee details input. Okay, so I close this output from here to here. Okay, and then I right click on the link and map data. So I right click, let's see, map data, and let's see employee ID, last name, first name, country, city, state, house number, street, zip code and address ID. Everything is fine, so I click on that. Okay, then I will drag a link between the return port to the in port of confirmation. Before that, I have to call it save. Then I have to return, drag this here, and then I have to save my model. Okay, so I'm almost done. I save my model. I go back to deploy. Okay, look at my employee search and look at my edit employee address. So look at my employee search and edit employee address, and then I would be I have deployed. Okay, so come back here and then run it. So employee prototype, run that. Okay, now click on search, it takes you there, go back, takes you back, save, it takes you to confirmation, click on modify, it takes you to modify details, and do save again, and then say restart, it will take you to the back. And so let me go back here. So we have deployed the model. Now only thing is that here when I deploy the model, okay, I have to fix one small thing. We were in the design field, so let's go to the layout. In search employee, okay, come to employee ID. See this, you have to uncheck this read only. Okay, uncheck this read only, then come to modify details, employee ID. Okay, make sure that in the second one this is checked. Okay, and then let me just, I'm getting confused, let me just check here. So in the first one the read only is unchecked, in the modified details read only is checked. Okay, I'm right. So come here. Okay, here this is unchecked, and here employee ID is unchecked. In modified details employee ID is checked. Okay, that's all you have to do. Then just save it back and then deploy once again. Deploy and then run. Yes, now you can put in data. So I put in 3213. I search, so it's now pulling up everything, and I'm fine. So what will happen now? I have to now take these 3 screenshots, So the first one with my employee ID, which I have given 3213, take this screenshot, search, take the second screenshot, and then take the third screenshot, which will show your change has been saved, modify, and restart. And also click on restart and see that it is taking you back to where it should be taking you back. So these are the 3 screenshots which you need to give me. Okay, page 30 and 31. Okay, that's it.